Welcome to the CHCH Newsmakers podcast. I'm your host, Rick Zamperin. Think about all the life-changing events that have happened over the last 180 years. There's been world wars, groundbreaking medical discoveries, and cool inventions. And through all those years, the Hamilton Spectator has kept our community informed. Today on Newsmakers, we are celebrating the Spec's 180th anniversary with Editor-in-Chief Cheryl Stepan and award-winning reporter Jon Wells. Cheryl, Jon, thanks for joining me on the Newsmakers podcast.
Absolutely a pleasure.
When I say 180, like what comes to mind? That's an astronomical number.
Yeah, it is. I mean, we are older than the city of Hamilton itself, which is wild. And as you mentioned, all of the things that have happened in the course of 180 years and all the businesses that have come and gone, and the Spectator has been there to chronicle all of it. It really is. It really is wild. And I love to sort of think about what it would have been like back in the day when it was just, 4 pages on rag paper. But
right.
I can't even imagine, because it's just changed so much.
Yeah.
It's just evolved so rapidly, particularly in the last couple of years. It is a really amazing accomplishment.
It's mind-boggling. Jon, you wrote about the early start with the founder of the newspaper, and it was literally a rag that was printed on. Talk about what you wrote about and the history behind this iconic piece of Hamilton.
Right. The paper originally was printed on linen, of all things. It wasn't even a paper kind of thing. It's fascinating to dig into the history of it. That the Spec was founded by a man named Robert Smiley, Irish descent, who was a printer in Kingston and Montreal, and was sort of recruited by some business people to come to Hamilton and start a newspaper in a town that already had several newspapers. And from scratch, that's the thing. At a time where, Queen Victoria's, the news of Queen Victoria's ascension to the throne had been, it took a month for that news to come to Hamilton. This is how slowly the news traveled back in the day.
Yeah.
And but it's sort of the confluence of some technological advances and the birth of the newspaper, and the right time, right place for the Spec to sort of get its early roots in the city. But as I say, with many competitors, that's one thing I'm fascinated by over the decades. So many papers have come and gone, 50 or 60 different newspapers. And the Spec has kind of persevered through all those years.
Yeah. You started before Confederation.
Yes.
You mentioned before the incorporation of the city of Hamilton, before running water in our homes in Canada, before electricity, before sliced bread. When you think about all these things that, the Spec was around before all these things, it's just hard to kind of fathom at how long. And you mentioned the dozens of other newspapers that set up shop, and some of them lasted a little bit, and some a little bit longer than others, but the Spec persevered. Why do you think that is?
It's interesting. I mean, and in researching stories over the years, sometimes I go to the library and look up, the Hamilton Herald, for example, was around for decades, and I thought, well, it's sort of sad. I mean, there was this paper that a lot of people, no doubt, were also followed, kind of thing. That's an interesting question. Why the Spec? I mean, I think this, Robert Smiley, by all accounts, was a visionary and struck this balance in terms of he was a wealthy man, the causes he championed in the paper, in the page of the Spectator, progressive for the time in terms of the environment and income inequality and that sort of thing. And striking sort of a middle road politically at the time. I think newspapers at the time were considered sort of organs of the political parties to a large extent.
Right.
And the Spec, I think, because it did strike a middle road, that may have helped it. You take one extreme or another on the spectrum, your lifespan may be short, and so that may have helped in terms of the coverage and what they were reporting upon and editorializing on. Maybe appealing to a broader base of the readership, small though the town was, and maybe that helped. And then, in the end, they're getting, quality people to write for the paper, and I don't know, it's interesting.
Yeah, and strong. I think also we've been blessed with strong leadership and strong ownership too. It sort of depends who owns you and whether they're dedicated to the mission, because it's obviously you don't necessarily get into this and stay in this to make lots and lots of money. You get into it because you care about your community, and so we've been fortunate that way for sure as well.
And certainly in the modern era, in the last 30 years, certainly during my time here, we've had ownership that's been supportive of us, and other in the media broadly speaking, broadcast and print, ownership going down the wrong road or not committed ownership can mean the end of that outlet. And we've seen it in Hamilton, which is just a sad and unfortunate thing. We've been fortunate. We really have. It could have gone otherwise.
Yeah.
It's kind of funny. One of the, I'm not sure if it was the first article that he wrote or ensuing ones, but he was also talking about trade or free trade as well as the environment, like very progressive kind of issues for that time, right?
And it's funny that those are still issues that we're writing about and talking about today.
Nothing changes.
Yeah, and he also had kind of as a mission, peace, happiness, and prosperity, wasn't it? And those are things. I mean, it's nice to know that that's how we were founded, and that's still what matters to us to this day. Like ultimately, that's the goal. Who doesn't want peace, happiness, and prosperity?
Right.
Yeah.
I like your recent piece as well, because a big part of this is the consumer, the reader, the person that you're speaking to, who has subscribed to the Spec for ages, decades in many cases. I think because they love reading about what's happening in their community, but I think they also love reading about it from the perspective of the reporters that you've had over the decades. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, absolutely. People develop relationships with some of our reporters. For sure they do. And that's a really important thing, to have them know that they can come to us and trust us. And so, Jon has some big admirers. We sometimes will do talks out in the community, and people will come specifically because they know Jon and they know his stories and they want to hear from him. So, and there's lots of other folks like that who are well known and well respected in the community, and that matters to people. Yeah.
You've had so many groundbreaking series as well. Code Zero probably comes to mind, or maybe at the top of the list, and how not revolutionary, but really painted a picture of what's happening in our community when it comes to healthcare. How significant do you think that has been?
Code Red.
Yeah. Oh, Code Red. Sorry.
No, that's okay. That's okay. Just huge. And I mean that put us on the international stage. Steve's work on that was really groundbreaking and really important for the Spectator, but also for the community. And knowing like health and wealth and those connections was it was important, and it still is work that matters to this day. Unfortunately, a lot of things have still not changed as a result of it, but at least we have more awareness and people are making efforts.
Yeah. Do you get the sense that the person who's reading those particular series, that they know what goes into it? Like they see it and they'll see, a week-long series, wow, this is fascinating and it's really educational and informative, and I can't believe this is happening in our community. But do you think they know how much work goes into something like that?
I think that some people do on some level, but I think that would be really hard for an average person to comprehend how much time and effort goes into putting together a story like that, and digging up the research and getting people to talk, which is increasingly difficult, and then fact checking everything and just making sure, editing and like the whole process. It is quite involved, and so. One of the things that we want to do is get out more into the community and help people kind of understand a little bit more about how the sausage is made. Some people think, well, it should be my right just to have this stuff for free. You do these investigations. Why do I have to subscribe or pay for them? But hopefully, once they understand how much work goes into it and how time-consuming and labor-intensive it is, then they will appreciate that a little bit more. Jon and managing editor Terry Pekoski recently had a book club kind of thing to talk about how one of Jon's stories came together, and it was really interesting what Jon had to say and what the people were asking Jon about how the story came together and how do you interview people sensitively, how do you get people to talk to you, and all of that. So it was really interesting. People were really engaged. So I think it is helpful once people understand how we do what we do, and also why we do it, and the sort of the ethics that we put into it, and the thought that goes into everything, all like the choices we make. There's a lot.
Yeah, the behind the scenes is very fascinating. What
Yeah.
kind of feedback, or did you see the light bulbs kind of go off of the people in the crowd responding to what you did?
Yeah, I mean, I think people have a fascination with journalism, with the craft, and like Cheryl said, I think we could do a better job of trying to convey what goes into these. Well, whether it's a quick deadline story on a given day where you've just got a couple hours to get a story together, or the bigger pieces, and. I always find that the question's fascinating. There was one woman there who was asking about, who is the reader I have in mind when I'm writing this particular story about Emily Bailey, this young woman who has been missing for years, and presumed homicide kind of thing, and which was a great question, because you're always thinking about who is the audience, who are you writing for, and talking about our readers, the sophistication of our readers. If you're doing a quick piece on some research at McMaster, and you're writing for the McMaster community because they're going to be reading it, but they may be experts. But you're also writing for the people like me who don't know anything about this at all, and so you're. But so that I thought that was a really insightful question to ask about who the reader was, and people want to know how you get your information, and surprisingly to me at least over the years, you often get asked how a sensitive story or a tragic story impacts you as a reporter, as a journalist.
Right. Yeah.
Which is something I don't know why it's surprising me, perhaps, but they seem concerned about you. You know what I mean? Like, oh, how do you deal with this, and that kind of thing, and which is something that maybe it is an issue, or it's something you maybe don't think about that much, but. That the readers are highly sensitive and well-read people, in my experience, and so
very thoughtful.
Very thoughtful. I think these emails from people that are often these sort of private exchanges, in essence, between readers. I always have these good email relationships with my readers, kind of thing. They're not necessarily writing letters to the editor, and it's a great back and forth. There's this ongoing dialogue that other people maybe don't see, and I think it's a valuable kind of thing.
Yeah. I know when I'm on the air or before morning live and the lights go on, you get that certain energy, in the body that we're doing something special, or at a Ticats game when you press the mic button and you're broadcasting what's happening on the field. I get a certain energy within me. Do you get that writing a story, creating these significant series? Do you get that kind of charge that we're doing something important and this is exciting?
I will let Jon answer that question, because I'm not. I mean, I get my energy in a kind of a different way, because I'm not actually writing stories anymore. I get my energy knowing that the newsroom is doing really exciting work, and how do we evolve? How do we take this to the next level? But I'll let you talk about what that energy is like when you're writing a story or going out to cover something.
Well, I think it's at all levels. I mean, when you have that first sort of meeting with the editors about to stick with the Emily Bailey story, for example, where the editors are meeting with me to saying, Jon, we'd like you to do this piece on Emily Bailey, and there's that. I can sense their sort of excitement or anticipation and what might come of this kind of thing. And Rick, I mean, even you just talking about the excitement of, I'm feeling already kind of thing about it's that mix of excitement and fear, constructive fear perhaps, that, is the story going to come off? Can I find out some information? Will people talk to me? Can I do justice to this, in this case, this tragic story?
Because it's a big responsibility, right? To be telling people's stories and telling them well.
Yeah. It's a great way to put it. And and there is that adrenaline rush, and so and then with that you can have the sort of the low of then getting into it and getting into the weeds on it, and maybe you're not finding the people to talk to, or maybe and that can sort of get you down kind of thing. But then you get the scoop or the information you want, and then when I sort of sit down to kind of really getting deep into the writing, there's excitement about that, and also a bit of foreboding, like is this gonna roll the way I hope it will, kind of thing. And if you can sort of catch your stride, it's like someone going for a run and kind of catching that bit of a runner's high when you're writing, and you sort of catch that, like, okay,
in the flow.
Now we're in the flow.
I've got that flow state.
And so it's a great feeling. That's I think we're as journalists we're fortunate to be in an occupation where you can get feelings like that. Not every job is like that.
Yeah, it's super fulfilling too when you've told a story and you've told it well, or you've told a story and it's affected some kind of change. When you've exposed a scandal or revealed something about the community, and it's made people change the way they think. That's powerful.
Yeah. There's many times where I will end a broadcast, whether it's here or with the Ticats, and it could be later that night or later in the day or maybe the next day, and I think, I should have done that.
Oh,
or I should have said that. Do you have
Absolutely.
those moments too?
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
I mean, I'm helping one of our younger journalists, one of our summer interns. She's working on a big piece. It's going to be a great feature, sort of a crime type piece. And she was just emailing me just yesterday saying, my deadline's coming up. I'm getting this new information coming in. And I hope I can. And I was like, Yasmin, this is what happens. You get late in the day. All of a sudden, some of the best stuff is coming in at the last hour. Sometimes after the piece has appeared. Someone may call and say, you know what? I knew that person. You're like, where were you a month ago?
Exactly.
Where were you 20 minutes ago? Whatever.
Yeah,
so,
for sure.
That's but. I think if somebody's putting together a bigger story, it's like building a house. You're putting these elements in, you're building this house kind of thing, and at the end, there's still going to be nails to hammer in, but you just hope that it's all done. The foundation is sturdy, to stick with the metaphor, But,
So the Spec has been around since 1846.
Yes.
In the early 20s, I think it was, radio came along. In the 50s, we had television news, and all programming. The internet age in the 90s, we've had social media in the early 2000s. All the while, I'm sure at every moment, people were saying, this is the death of newspaper. I remember when TV came, not that I was around, but I remember them saying, this is the death of radio as well. Like, we have all these new mediums, all these new avenues that people can consume information. I'm sure you've heard it a million times.
Yep.
AI is another new thing in the new millennium. That's reversing course on some people's thinking. How has the newspaper industry combated all these different death by a thousand cuts, even though we're still living?
Yeah, well, we are still living, I think. And I know I've heard that it was certainly about print journalism. Print journalism is dead, and certainly it's in decline. I'm not going to say that it's not. We have fewer subscribers than we had a decade ago, or even last year. But there are still lots of people who love that print product. There's no question about that. So it's not going anywhere anytime soon. But I mean, that's what we've been doing. We've been evolving, and it just seems like every day practically there's a new challenge that's thrown at us. And because you talked about internet, well, now we have AI and so people are not necessarily reading our stories; they're reading summaries, AI summaries, and so what are we going to do about that? But that's kind of what is challenging, and it's sometimes hard, but we also thrive on that. Like, okay, we're committed to finding a way, and I can't imagine a world in which the Spectator wasn't here telling the stories that need to be told in this community. I know CHCH does a good job of that, and we're grateful that we have other media in this town doing that work, but where are people going to get their information from? Where is that AI summary going to come from if we're not providing that?
It seems so scary.
It is. It's really a scary world, and I don't think people necessarily understand that. Like, I can get my news from TikTok or an AI summary, but okay, well, where is the basis for that news? Where does that come from? It comes from us or you or whatever, and so we just have to figure it out. And we're always having conversations about okay, now what do we do, and how do we work with the tech giants and the Google algorithms and whatnot to make sure that we're evolving in the way we should, so that we will be alive and thriving for years to come. And I mean, we're still investing. Jon mentioned a summer intern. We've got a summer intern program, and we're figuring it out because we're fortunate, as I said, to have strong ownership and leaders, and it's a challenge, but it's fun.
When I started journalism school more than 30 years ago, my dad said, he has this friend of his who had strong opinions on everything, and my dad said, Peter says the newspaper's a dying business, a dying industry, more than 30 years ago. And I said, and at the time, I said, well, maybe, but this is what I want to do.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And you have to sort of believe in what you're doing, like we do. But I think there's an appetite out there that's really primal, elemental in people for information that they can trust, and that's genuine and real. Yeah. And I think these advances in technology almost enhance the value of the local, journalistically balanced stories that we write. In the same ways, people are still there's still a market for people enjoy reading, books and vinyl, music, records, and whether it's a cafe that may seem just a little more, warm kind of thing, and these genuine experiences I think people are looking for. I think when it comes to newspapers or local information like CH does or we do, I think there's that market is, if anything, it's getting stronger in a sense. You know what I mean? Paradoxically, even within this AI era.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I'll ask you both this, and we'll start with you, Cheryl. Why did you get into journalism, and in specific print journalism? What drew you to that?
I mean, it for the reasons when you're an idealistic, 20-year-old, you want to change the world, right? Seriously, it was that.
Yeah.
And I was curious. I liked learning things. And honestly, in what other job can you go and ask people questions about and learn something new every single day?
Right.
Like it's just
And get paid for it.
Exactly,
Right? Yeah.
Exactly. So it really was that, and I never expected to be in the position that I'm in today. It wasn't like I one day will be the editor-in-chief. It just kind of evolved, and it has been super rewarding, and I really do have the best team, and I'm so glad that we're still investing and we're not dying.
Yeah.
We're not just like slowly dying. We're investing, and we have a new product, Hamilton Live, which is dedicated to all the goings on in the community. And so it's just it's still really cool and really vibrant. And as Jon said, technology is helping that in some ways.
Yeah, Jon, why'd you get into the industry?
You might appreciate it, Rick. I mean, in a word, sports. Growing up as a young kid, I loved. I was a big Montreal Canadiens fan. Sorry, Leaf fan.
Yeah, we can't be friends now. Go ahead.
You can edit that part out. But I loved, hockey was my thing. I would read biographies and history of and that was kind of my thing. And I thought I either wanted to be a hockey broadcaster or a writer. And I was in grade 7 and grade 8. I would write hockey stories on my mom's typewriter and put them in a duotang and try to sell it to my mom.
Duotang.
All the kids listening to the podcast be like, what?
Duotang, look it up, Google that. So that was kind of my roots in wanting to be, I wanted to be a sports writer, essentially. And through high school, the high school student newspaper at Western, writing sports. So that was kind of how I kind of evolved into the, there wasn't sort of any idealism involved in terms of finding the truth or interviewing people. I mean, I like to write. I was I'd spend my evenings at home alone writing stories kind of thing. I learned later that, interviews is how you get your information kind of thing.
Yeah.
But that's how I got into it kind of thing. And then it kind of evolved once I went to journalism school and then working in Guelph and Hamilton into covering events and politics and crime and all these other things, opening up this whole other world in terms of the journalism. That's how I got started anyway.
Yeah, we have a very similar story. I got into this industry with a sports mindset. I wanted to be the next Bob Cole and commentate the Maple Leafs at Maple Leaf Gardens and follow the team through its highs and lows, mostly lows, but it is what it is. But found the world of news and truth-seeking and storytelling very compelling, and I just put my head down and dove into that, and it has been so rewarding. Gotten to meet so many amazing people, and the stories that they've shared that you can share with the community is very intriguing and rewarding to me. So it's a great business to be in for sure.
It is. It's special.
Yeah. Now you mentioned Hamilton Live.
Yes.
How can we find more information about this?
HamiltonLive.ca, and there's a tab on the Spectator website too, where you can find it, and it's a print product that's every Thursday in the Spectator, and so we do a lot of food, entertainment, culture, trends, like all of that, just kind of highlighting all of the good things that are going on in Hamilton, because Hamilton also is experiencing something with all of the new we're not covering sports in that, but the sports team's coming, the TD Coliseum, all the entertainment that's coming, the really amazing food scene. So we are celebrating that. In addition to providing people with, news, we wanted to also have the
It's a great little tool, for sure. Because there's a lot of amazing things happening in this city.
I was going to say, it
really
makes me think of that sort of history, how the Spec, I mean, I wrote in my piece on the history of the Spec, how the Spectator and the city essentially grew up together. The city was incorporated, and several months later, the Spectator was born. And so, we, the Spec, have been telling the Hamilton story for all 180 years. Yeah. And kind of reflecting what's happening in the community. It's an interdependent kind of symbiotic relationship, right? So as these exciting things happening in the core with the new arena and the art scene and the food and all that, and then Cheryl, this initiative to start Hamilton Live to cover that, to reflect that, and give that back to the community kind of thing. It's a neat kind of thing. I suppose, if the city, if none of these things were happening, we couldn't write stories about it.
Right.
Exactly.
So
Hamilton is a great news town. Like, there's a lot going on here, but it's a great news town. So we're blessed with that. There's no shortage of stories to tell.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, the longevity of the Spec can be tied to the diversity and the awesomeness of this city, from whether it's crime or sports or just the regular news kind of cycle that happes in this city. There's a lot that happens here, and that has happened.
I found it as such a simple thing, but I had worked in Guelph, and I'm from London mostly, Ontario. And when I came to Hamilton, I was given an assignment to do a ward profile on a ward that included the beach strip. And I was new to the city. I'd never even seen the beach, so I went down there just to kind of talk to people and kind of get a sense of the ward. And all of a sudden I see this beach, and I'm like, this is amazing. So I wrote about that in one of my earliest stories. I mean, the geography, the physical geography of the city is a story. The escarpment, the beach, the lake, the valley, all these, that London, my hometown and all, but there's not a lot. There's just not a lot there. I'm sorry, I can say that, my town. The forest city, sure, great trees. Yeah. But so that alone, Hamilton is a great. All you have to do is just kind of go out and walk around, and there's a story before you even get to the people and the crime and the politics and stuff. So.
And then you add the location, where it is geographically with Toronto and the States. Around the Golden Horseshoe, the steel mills, the political strife and angst that has followed along for years, not just recent, but decades. And so many fascinating figures, groundbreaking figures like Link and Ellen Fairclough, first to do something in the political sphere.
It's rich.
There's
rich
so
history.
many layers to the onion that is Hamilton. It's amazing.
No, it's true. Yeah, and sort of trying to we can't tell it all. You know what I mean? But we try to do our best. I mean, I got to do a profile on Link Alexander years ago. Met him in his home. I'm just what a character. You know what I mean? It's one of those you talk about having adrenaline working on stories. Kind of like, wow, there's so much here.
Right.
What and it's almost overwhelming in terms of, because he was such a big figure and the big voice, and I think he answered the door. He was going off. I showed up. He'd just come back from an event, and he was bare chested. He answered the door, this big man. He's like, John, come in. I'm just like, I didn't write that in the story, but I mean, there he was, Link. And then I remember doing a big feature when the Link Parkway, first opened, and it was named after Lincoln Alexander. And I did a little phone interview for the editors at the time, saying, let's do a quick kind of news hit on how Link is feeling on now that it's opening. And I get Link on the phone, and he's like, oh well, John, I'll tell you a story. I never learned to drive, and I never owned a car. And I'm like, really? And he's like, yeah. So I walk over to the news desk, Roger Gillespie and Dana Robbins on the news desk at the time, and I said, this is kind of interesting. Link says he never learned to drive and never owned a car. And they're like, what? They're like, this is our front page. And, just the excitement of that kind of little tidbit. And, but that's in the city, just surprises and no shortage of stories, and some joyous and happy and many tragic, and we're here to do it all.
Yeah, it's a real gift to be able to tell these stories, and honestly, we're just so grateful that people are still engaged, and we have really loyal readers and subscribers, and it's fantastic.
What's the common denominator when it comes to feedback? What do you hear from your subscribers?
Oh gosh, I mean, I don't know that there's a common denominator. I feel like some people are mad at us, and some people love us, and I think that sometimes when they're equally mad and equally loving us, we're doing our job, right? Yeah. I don't know that there's a common denominator. Sometimes people are grateful for telling the stories, and some people still have questions, and that's another thing that we want to do sort of more of, is making sure that we have ways that readers can ask us questions like, okay, so say we've written a story and we haven't answered all your questions. Like, how can you reach out to us and make sure we're answering the questions? I don't know. Can you think of a common denominator for feedback?
Certainly, there's different places to look for that feedback. I mean, if you just go online to the comments on stories, you'll see the extremes. People who love the story and might say, "Wow, this is amazing," and others who are saying this is just typical Spectator direct, and they hate it, kind of thing. So,
if they've even read it, sometimes I feel like they haven't necessarily.
True, they just want to give it a thumbs down and say, death to the Spectator. But it's almost the wrong place to look for a common denominator, because you're getting the two poles kind of thing. And I feel like the emails I receive for stories that I've written are always almost always positive. You'll get the I'll get the occasional one where someone will ask, well, why didn't you do this? Or I'm disappointed in this, and I'll respond back, and they'll, now I get it, kind of thing. There's that back and forth kind of thing, But and there's the whole, maybe that sort of silent majority out there who don't tend to comment online, which is the vast majority of readers don't write a comment or a letter to the editor or email a reporter, but they're consuming the paper. Presumably they're happy with the product because they continue to subscribe, and we need them to keep doing that. And they're critical, and they're feeling good about what we do at the same time. And we don't hear from them, but we're sure grateful that, like Cheryl said, that they're there.
Yeah. Cheryl, when you think about everything that's happening in this city right now, what gets you excited or maybe worried?
Oh boy. The youth violence worries me. Homelessness worries me, that crisis that is so complex that we can't seem to figure that out. We have a reporter dedicated to telling those stories. So those are things that worry me. There's some people who are really struggling in the city, and that's heartbreaking. What gets me excited is, I think, some of the stuff we've already talked about, that there's investment happening, like that we're not just sort of withering and decaying. There's investment happening in our core, and there's some people who are really committed to making the city as vibrant as possible, and that's the future that I want for the Spec and for my kids and
the community, obviously.
And the community, absolutely.
Do you have a favorite all-time story, whether you've written it or it was a member of your team or it was just in the Spec maybe years ago? Does anything come to mind? That's
a tricky one.
That's a
tricky, really, really tricky one to answer. There honestly have been so many. And I think about the big features that we've told, like the stories that Jon has written, the crime series that Jon has written, or Code Red, as you mentioned. But some of the smaller stories too that have really resonated with readers. I just honestly couldn't choose.
Too many to
I
choose,
couldn't choose one.
Jon, do you have a favorite?
That's figured you're coming to me. That's tough. I may notice on our website this week, as we commemorate our groundbreaking series like Code Red and others, that my series from way back in the day, Poison, is on there. Big crime series, and I remember at the time editor-in-chief said, assigning me the project, saying, I want you to look back on this in 20 years as the greatest thing you ever did, kind of thing. No pressure. So that's up there. But in writing my history of the Spec, I quoted a reader who said that to him, the Plastomet fire disaster coverage stands out as the big story, and the series I wrote out of that, called Heat, about Bob Shaw, the beloved local firefighter who passed away, who had fought Plastomet, and getting to know the Shaw family. That series, as the years go past, lots of great experiences, different stories, big and small, but that one sticks with me as an emotional, this sort of attachment I have to that story and that family that is special. So I think about that one the most, probably.
It's amazing to think about all the changes we've had, even in the last 10 to 20 years. Can you envision the next 180 and what that might look like for the Spectator?
I can't.
It's hard to imagine, right?
It really is hard to imagine, because you think about even in the last, when did generative AI, it's been about
a handful of years,
yeah,
right? Yeah,
exactly, right? And think about how much that has transformed everything that we do, including our industry, because we are trying to figure out ways to use that ethically. and we're not replacing reporters with robots. But like it's just evolving so quickly. I cannot even imagine what the future is going to look like in 10 years, let alone 180.
Yeah. It's pretty scary at times, to be honest.
Yeah.
You know?
It is.
Yeah.
And things are accelerating so exponentially. You know what I mean? Things have always changed, but from say the 80s to the early 90s, was there a lot happening? Maybe not that much. And then in my piece, I quoted the Spec editor-in-chief back in 1996, Kirk LaPointe, talking about the internet and how we're going to try it out and see if maybe
internet.
Short-term benefit for long-term gain.
Right.
In '96, and then from '96 to now, I mean, it's unbelievable. So the next, never mind 100 years, in the next 10 years, I mean, who knows, right?
Yeah.
But the human condition, storytelling, personal experience. There's continuity with that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, and just the need for people to know what's going on in their community. I mean, I said it before, like what would we do without journalists telling these stories and putting the work in to expose scandals and right wrongs and all that kind of thing. Like I hope that there's a future in that. I don't know what the platform will look like, but I hope and expect there would be a future in that, and just the storytelling, the need to want to be connected with your community and your neighbors and know what's going on. That's kind of fundamental.
Well, I'm sure 180 years from now, I mean, we won't be around, but I'm sure the Spectator will be around in some form or another, and people will still be enjoying what reporters are writing about and the experiences that are happening in Hamilton. Thank you so much for joining us on the Newsmakers podcast.
That's right.
All right.
Thanks so much, Rick.
And happy 180.
Thank you.
And thanks for checking out the Newsmakers podcast. A big thanks to the all-star cast behind the scenes. If you like today's episode, click the thumbs up, hit subscribe. You can leave a comment as well. Catch the Newsmakers podcast on chch.com/podcasts and wherever you get your favorite podcasts.